Take your Bibles, turn to Luke 21. We'll get to this here in just a minute. I want to talk a little bit about gratitude. What is it about gratitude that we need to understand? We need to understand that gratitude, we talked about meekness last week, but genuine gratitude comes from genuine humility. Understanding where we are and who we are. You can't be humble without gratitude, and you can't be grateful without humility. Many years ago, they took a poll among professing Christians, the Barna Institute, and the greatest sin committed, they said years ago, the surprise of many was the sin of ingratitude. That even among Christianity, ingratitude was something that was looming large, and people just don't have a thankfulness for what they have. And when you chew on that for just a minute, you think about it a little bit. If you're going to live a successful and joyful Christian life, then that grace of gratitude has to flow through us. It just has to. It's really, if your testimony is going to stand at all, there's got to be gratitude shown for the things going on in our lives. And with that in mind, I'm just going to talk about 10 different things that deal with having a grateful attitude no matter what's going on in our life. You've heard people talk about, well, he's a self-made man. Well, I submit to you there is no such thing as a self-made man. we often hear it said of someone that they're, they did it all themselves. I built this business from the bottom up with no help, nobody, no. Well, that's rarely the case, isn't it? Because most of us, we have to deal with the product or influence that others left behind us. I've wrought this question many times in my ministry to people that think they're so stinking intelligent. And I ask them, if you went home today, could you make a light bulb? Oh, yeah. Most people don't even know what's in a light bulb. They don't realize how hard it was to build a light bulb, let alone just go home and make a light bulb. Just go home and make yourself a piece of glass the shape of a light bulb. That alone in itself is a trick, right? I mean, then you got to go find yourself some tungsten and figure out how to get that tungsten in there just right. So when electricity flows through that tungsten, it'll immediately burn up. What was it that Edison said he spent 1,000 tries it took to invent the light bulb? And he said, what a waste of time. He said, no, I learned 999 ways not to do it. But you know what happens is we build on what others have left behind. And so we're not really as, people say, well, this guy is a better, faster builder than that guy is. Yeah, well, that guy had a hammer and nails in his pouch when he built that house 35 years ago. And the next guy had pneumatic tools, and now they're airless tools. And now you can just order one and you pop it up and you throw some bolts and latch it. Literally, it's different. Things change with every generation. So you can't divorce yourself from the contributions that other people make to your life. And the person that doesn't regularly recognize the contributions that other people make to their life to make their life what it is, their successes and their stature, that's very short-sighted and very self-centered to think you're all that without anybody else's help or outside influence, because that's normally not how that works. When you look over here, I'll look over in Acts chapter 4 real quick. In Acts chapter 4, and down in verse 20, it says, for we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard. Even Paul had to be given something to work with. It wasn't as if he just popped, he was full of everything he needed and he just went and started preaching. He had to hear and he had to know, he had to learn. That's how it is with most of us as well. So remember, there's no such thing as being self-made. Secondly, I think the foundation of gratitude is the expectation of nothing. Now, years ago, I watched as a couple of brothers destroyed their relationship because one loaned money to the other brother. The money didn't get paid back. Bitterness set in. All this stuff took place. But you know what I figured out from that experience years and years ago? If you don't have it to lose, don't give it away. Don't expect anything in return to begin with. If you're going to do it, just gift it. We do well to remember that though we're indebted to all men, we ought to feel that none are indebted to us. And I don't want to make another human being feel indebted to me. I don't want to feel indebted. I don't want other people to be indebted to me. And this is one of the successes and secrets of possessing gratitude, but it's also a secret to happiness. If you want to live bitterly, then just do it a different way. But you know, when God gave his grace through his son, he didn't say, now here's what I expect in return. Did he? No. There are some things that we should do, but if you expect nothing, then anything is a bonus. And that's really the end of it. A lot of people get upset and get frustrated because they're expecting something back. And you know, if you expect more than you receive, then what a blessing that is. You know, I mean, or you receive more than you expected, you go, hey, that's a blessing. That's a bonus. I didn't expect that. But if we expect nothing of other people, what are you saying, preacher? Well, good works aren't what saves us, but our salvation ought to rot. It ought to bring about good works. And those good works we do, we shouldn't be expecting anything in return. When we do end up with something in return, guess what? That's a blessing. But if you're waiting for something in return, that can work on your heart. It can work on your mind. It can bring about this discouragement or ingratitude, if you will, about what's happening. If he expects less than he receives, you're going to be pleased when you receive the same thing. A lot of times I go do stuff for people like, hey, here, I want you to have this. I don't go doing it because I want something in return. You know, and sometimes, honestly, there's been times, not now, but in the past, years ago when I first got here, I couldn't afford to do it, but I did it anyway, and was actually rebuked for it. Well, you can't afford to do that. Another brother telling me, you can't afford to do that. Well, I didn't feel like I could afford not to. You know what I mean? I didn't expect anything in return. And that keeps the playing field level when it comes to your heart and protecting your heart from becoming bitter and going, I'm never doing that again. I got burned. You know, why'd you get, well, you think you got burned because you had this expectation that was probably never going to be met to begin with when you got involved in whatever it was you're involved in ministry-wise. It's just how that is. The third thing here, and I think a big one, is to remember to weigh the small gifts in life. It's, we're prone to judge the size of a gift by how much it costs. And people a lot of times will try to impress you or me by the price of the gift they give. Well, there's a lot that could be said there, but that's a poor basis for measurement. It is. Because you think about this for a minute, money is simply time that's wrapped up in paper and called a gift. It is. I got to work so many hours to pay for this gift that's wrapped. That's what this is. It's my time wrapped in a piece of paper given to you. And so we tend to place different values to these types of things. And the person that makes $1 an hour gives as much when he gives $1 as the person that makes $50 an hour and gives $50. They both had to work an hour for it, didn't they? But it's not easier to look at the $50 an hour guy and go, wow, he gives so much more than the guy that gave $1 an hour. It costs the guy that's making $1 an hour the same sweat, the same tears, the same time as it did the guy making $50 an hour. Well, where does that bring us? Well, it brings us to Luke chapter 21. When you get here in verse 1, it says, he looked up and saw the rich men casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in thither 2 mites. And he said, of a truth I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast in more than they all. For all these have of their abundance cast in unto the offerings of God, but she of her penury hath cast in all the living that she had. And we're not going to expand on that a lot. I mean, you understand what he's saying here. She was poor and had nothing, and these chests are opened up, and here it is time to give. And the guy's got $1 million, give $100, and everybody goes, ooh and ah. They gave $100. But that old woman only gave 2 mites. Yeah, but she gave everything she had. It's the small gifts sometimes that mean more than the large gifts. It's interesting because my birthday rolls around and I appreciate all the gifts. I do. The different things. We get gift cards to go here and go there and the things we enjoy. And, this year, something different happened. Tempest knitted me a holder for my eyeglasses. Now, when you weigh that in light of a gift card for $20 in coffee, how do you weigh the two? Do you discount the one because the other one is this, the other one's that? How much time does it take to knit that kind of thing? Right? What's her time worth? What's the materials worth? What's the, what I'm saying there is just stay humble and remember the small gifts a lot of time have as much power and impact behind them as even the big gifts. And a lot of times we see our children, and I think we really have to be cautious in what we do because our kids are very careful to go, well, he got this and I didn't get that, and they got that and I didn't get that. What they're doing in their mind is going, they got more money wrapped in paper than I did. That's what they're telling you when they do that. And that is ingratitude. When somebody takes time and says, I think this would fit this person, here's what I think this one needs. This is funny because it's not part of your notes at all. It's just part of my mind working. We're on vacation and, we see different things. We go, we think this person needs this and this kid needs this and that kid needs that. Christmas is coming, right? And I remember when I was a kid and I'd open up and go, underwear. Lousy parent buys you underwear. Socks. That ought to be everyday stuff. But then you get a little older and you go, hey, a new pair of underwear. I got some warm socks. My feet are cold. Isn't it amazing how time changes the value of the same thing based on what you've learned in your life? With gratitude, ingratitude, you start to appreciate what it is. And now, man alive, socks and underwear are expensive. So don't assume if you got socks and underwear, you got a cheap gift. Anyway, that's another one. But when you take the time to weigh a gift in light, who did that, who did what, realize the impact that it has for them too. Because your ingratitude can really harm and damage their giving heart, giving all they have to give. Don't be like, oh, that's all you could muster up. That's all you could afford. That's all I'm worth to you. Listen, I've been around birthday parties where little kids rip a present open and have a fit because it wasn't what they wanted or what they want. And you go, that is not what we want to cultivate in our kids. We certainly don't want to cultivate that in our own hearts. But built on that is we also need to be sure not to measure the large gifts. When you're trying to develop gratitude, a large gift is easier to appreciate, isn't it, than a smaller gift. It's easier to, but a lot of times when you weigh those gifts, it really does decrease the gratitude in your life. You might not see it, but others will. They'll see how, only the big things impress you. Only the large things. So, be careful when you weigh the small gift in order to gain more gratitude, but we don't weigh the large gift because sometimes they take away from our gratitude. And I don't even know how to say that. I mean, I know a church that their pastor 25 years and they gave him a brand new Ford truck and said, hey, we're thankful for It's easy to focus on something like that and go, wow, look how much that church gave to that pastor. But what about the 25 years before that when they did everything else they did too? It might not have been a new truck, but let's not lose focus of the fact they housed him, they fed him, they clothed him, they gave him love offerings, they bought him half a beef here and this. That. You understand what I'm saying? It's easy to focus on those big things to say, this is what's more important than the little things are. And we need to teach our kids that at a very early age, because it's just easy to place that higher thing on the gratitude list if we're not careful. And our kids see that. And also, don't ever lose appreciation for the gifts you do get. You know, gratitude acquired ought to be gratitude kept. You know, every time I reach my bag, I see that gift. And I'm thankful, you know, that Tempest cared enough to do something like that for me. Because not everybody takes time to do that kind of thing. You know, and I'm thankful for that. You know, and that builds on, you know, what your life becomes or doesn't become. You can be that person that lives a life who's never satisfied. And you know why? Because you have no gratitude. There's no humility tied with that. Be thankful you got people that care enough about you that think about those kind of small things. You know, the little notes that we get from time to time. Just the little things. You go, man, I'm so happy to have that, because there's a lot of people that don't have that. You know, here it's been some time ago, but I don't know, Blaine a couple of years ago, he's a lot smaller than he is now, which is hard to believe. But he just kind of stood there in the kitchen back there, and you know, he's like, you know, get down here. And I went down and he grabbed my tie, and he pulled my tie down, and he just hugged me, and then he left. But I've never forgot that. I'm thankful I've got people in my life like that. How many people in your life do you have like that? How many people don't have any of that, and they sit at home in the dark, bitter and depressed? And you know, I'm thankful that God's given me all of these particular things, because there's been a lot of people that have done a lot of things for me that I'll never forget. And we should never cease to say thank you for those things that are being done. We live in a thankless, godless world, folks. I mean, it's incredible to see what's going on in the world, the selfishness that takes place. It really is. It's just heartbreaking to me to see that. You know, when I think about things to be thankful for, I'm thankful to God every day for my salvation. You know, we're coming into a time, our Thanksgiving time, and you know, we'll have time for all that. But there's a lot of things to be thankful for every day of our life, isn't there? And you know, make sure that you don't let anything extinguish that kind of spirit, because there's a strange true fact here about the human race. We're so prone to complain because the roses have thorns instead of the other way around, aren't we? Well, why can't we have it just this way? Why can't it just be that way? You know, we're just a grumbly people from the start, aren't we? I mean, we see it all around us. And I read this quote, and it said that it hurts more to have your arm cut off than it feels good to have it on. Does that make sense? A lot of times we don't appreciate it because we're not missing it. A lot of things in life are like that. We don't appreciate people in our life until we're missing them and they're gone. And then all of a sudden it hurts, doesn't it? And you know why? Because we don't have the gratitude we ought to have today for the people that God's put in our life, the things that God's given us to make our lives rich. We don't have to be rich in a monetary way, but how tragically it is when we've got these kind of people in our lives. And, you know, you've got people, you do 1,000 different kindnesses for somebody, and you lose their friendship over one seeming injustice. You ever see that? It's because that attitude is waiting for the injustice. It's not appreciative of the kindness, but it's always the attitude of waiting for the offense. I would hate to be that person that sits around waiting for the offense. You know, I don't understand that. You know, a saved person can lead another person to Christ, point them to heaven, save them, help save them from eternity without God or hope, and later do something to disappointment and lose their friendship over something benign, something silly. Let's keep our balance. Don't leave the church because your pastor, who said 1,000 things that helped you, says one thing that hurt you. But it happens. I've seen it happen. Don't lose gratitude because someone who's done something for you seemingly does something against you. Grace, mercy, long-suffering, humility, gratitude. These things they all work together. They all flow together, and I think sometimes we can let the world just help extinguish those things in us because we let too much of the world get involved in our life and staying involved in our Bibles and on our knees before God and understanding this world is not my home. Right now, I just need to focus on the Lord. The other thing, is to feel gratitude in our hearts and think through every gift given to you and every gesture done for you. Think of all the possibilities when you think about all the plans and efforts that are brought forward in doing something just for you. All that has to take place. When we were gone, you guys got together and cut a pile of wood at our house. Now, that might seem like a simple thing, just cut a pile of wood. But you know what it means to me? I mean, I've cut those piles of wood many times. It means 4 or 5 days of work, stacking, back pain, backache, time lost on other things. I'm super appreciative. Every time I drive around there and see that one pile gone, I'm like, man, that pile's gone. I just got one pile left. Just look around and see the things that you have and the things that have been done and what it's taken other people to accomplish those things. And, be thankful for that. I mean, what a blessing those things are. Look at all the possibilities. And I think the more that you let gratitude swell in your heart as you ought to do, it will take you away from those other things that you shouldn't do. Those other thoughts, those bitternesses, those gripes, those complaints, they'll eventually just fade into the past. They'll fade away from you. And, it costs the other person time and money and effort, and it costs them a lot of things and what they don't get done doing for themselves because they're busy doing for you. You ought to take that into consideration that it's a lot. A lot of times it's, there's important things that other people can be doing too besides serving you, besides taking care of you, right? We ought to be thankful for that. But we ought to be quick to express our gratitude. Look here, if you're still in Luke, look at Luke 17. This is just so mind-blowing to me, but this is exactly what we're talking about. This is the world as we know it, In Luke 17, in verse 11, and it came to pass as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. There he is again, going where no man has gone before, right? And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices, and I think when you read this, and it says, and they, it's talking about all 10, okay? It doesn't say otherwise. Their voices, and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, go show yourselves unto the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back and with a loud voice glorified God and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. That's a double bonus, isn't it? I wasn't even a Jew, I was a Samaritan. And Jesus answering said, were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? There are not found that return to give glory to God, save this stranger. And he said unto him, arise, go thy way. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Interestingly enough, one of them returns to give thanks. Out of 10. 10 of them were healed. One comes back. Where are the 9? Well, it doesn't tell us. But how many times are there expressions and feelings and things of this nature that we don't express? Because we don't necessarily, not necessarily am I saying we don't, We're not grateful for these things. We're not thankful for these things, but we fail to express that. You know, other people need to understand what they're doing too is helpful in what they're doing for us. Does the Lord need kudos for what he did? He doesn't. He just simply acknowledged that he healed 10. One came back thanking him for it. Now, this is an interesting bit of information. Believe it or don't believe it, in all the years I was a flight medic, in all the disasters I flew in on, and all of the catastrophes I dealt with, in all the lives saved, I had one person thank me. And I can't even tell you how many times I was threatened to be sued. Cut a guy's shirt off one night to save his life because he fell off his porch and scalped himself. He's going to sue me because I cut his T-shirt. Cussing at me up one side and down the other. I heard about it for a week. I had to go and stand in front of the man because apparently the whole village was in an uproar because I cut the guy's T-shirt. His old nasty, filthy T-shirt I cut off so I could start an IV on him to save his life. And I spent a week explaining why I did that. That's the world. That's how it is. That went on and on and on and on and on. And then after I got out of the Army, I was actually in the ministry, but I was teaching advanced cardiac life support at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital. And there's a lady in the class with me, and we get to talking, and she's like, "Oh, I just love paramedics. They saved my son's life." And I said, "Oh, I'm happy for you." And I said, what happened to him? And she said, "Oh, they were flying down the road, and the guy was drunk, and they all flew out the window, and he's the only one that survived." And I said, "Up by Manly Hot Springs about 5 years ago." She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I was the medic that picked him up off the ground and put him in the aircraft and kept him alive till we got him to the hospital." And she was just in tears and thanked me and thanked me, thanked me, thanked me. And he spent a year in the hospital. That's how boogered up he was when he hit the asphalt. I mean, well, it was gravel. He flew out the windshield in the gravel and looked like a piece of hamburger when I got to him. And but you know what? He lived, went to college. He was working. He was successful. And she was happy, and she was so thankful. She just kept going on and on that whole class about what a great deal it was. It was like that was the first time in all those years I felt like, wow, you know, I'm glad somebody appreciated what we did all those times, you know. It's the same even in Christianity. Don't think that people don't want to hear, "Hey, thank you for doing the things that they do." We need to show gratitude and express gratitude, you know. Isn't it nice at the end of a school year when we used to take something to our teacher? We'll always have some kind of little gift we give our teacher. Last day of school, we go up and give her a note, this, you know, a little thing of candy, different things. And you know what? That makes all the difference in the world to a teacher or to somebody who's put all this effort in, pouring that effort into the, you know, the lady we do, you know, we had a bunch of ladies in town do our dry cleaning, and at Christmas time, you know, needed to get them gift cards to the coffee shop. And just going to say, "Hey, thanks." Yeah, we pay them. It's a service they provide. But you know what? They're always pleasant. They're always nice. They're always prompt. So we just do something to show our gratitude for them and what they do. And you know what that does? It means that we have a really nice, you know, we can go in and talk about different things, and it's opened up doors for us to. And then, you know, a few weeks ago, we were invited to one of their husband's funeral deals. It opens a big door sometimes, just showing a little bit of mercy and grace to people. And does it cost you something? It's going to cost you something. But also, we need to be grateful for the usual. You know, sometimes I just get up in the morning, I praise God I got up in the morning. You know, I was watching the deal with Red Skelton the other night. And Johnny Carson was interviewing him. He said, "Red, what's the first thing you do in the morning?" He goes, "Well, when I wake up, I don't smell flowers and see candles burning. I get out of bed." That's what they used to do in the old funeral homes. He's like, "I know I'm still alive. I get going." He goes, "I'm thankful to have another day." And some days, you know, you get up, you ought to just be thankful for the normal. You know, you get up and you have something to eat. You have a wood stove that has heat. You know, you have the things that we get so ungrateful for. Some of the things we just forget to praise God for the normal. You know, it's a blessing to be able to come and worship the way we do, have the Bibles we have. There's so many things, everyday life, that we need to be grateful for. Our kids need to understand that it's not the out of the ordinary we need to be grateful for. It's the everyday ordinary things God gives us we need to be grateful for. Amen? And lastly, just be grateful for the least. The more you appreciate the little, the more you'll appreciate the average. It's just, and it's something that's trained. Everyone in this room has more than they deserve. We just live in a blessed land, and when you look at previous generations, I have so much more than my parents ever dreamed of having. And that's normal today. Our parents had one car. When your parent was at work with the car, everybody stayed home. There was only one car. And now every kid in the house has the car. We buy cars for the dogs, the grandkids. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's got an iPad. We all have TVs. We got our own rooms, got our own houses. We got more stuff than you shake stick at. Guess what? We got one of the most ungrateful generations we've ever raised. It didn't help anything. Sometimes you take some of that stuff away so they start appreciating what they do have. How it works. God, we need to pray God to give us that humility to have that kind of gratitude and be thankful the way we ought to be thankful. We're coming into Thanksgiving season, and I always reflect on this. I mean, I know personally that I don't express it enough to people that support me in all the different ways and different helps, and I certainly appreciate it. I do. I never want to offend anybody by not letting you know how much I appreciate all that gets done for me, because I couldn't possibly be successful in anything without everybody's help around me. And I know most of you feel the same way. It's just how it is. God has been good to us, and that ought to overflow into the people around us. I was talking to a kid on the phone the other day, and he's a salesman. And the salesman kid is like, "Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense." And I said, "Well, I'm in the ministry, and here's what we do. We help other people." And he's like, "Man, I wish people around here were like that." He's in Seattle. He's like, "Here it's a dog eat dog world." I said, "Well, don't kid yourself. It's a dog eat dog world everywhere, except in Alaska where bears eat dogs. But something's eating something here. I mean, dog slow is getting eaten." And anyway, just be thankful for today. Thankful for what you have now. Don't focus on things that don't matter anyway and get all wrapped up in that like the rest of the world does. And it'll just wreck your attitude. It'll wreck your heart for the Lord and your service for the Lord. Amen. Okay, Selah.